we do these shows to help bring light into the dark, because oftentimes people dealing with cancer, as well as these nonprofit organizations, are sad situations. And so comedy is light in the dark. And so our new segment is titled Comedy for Causes, Turning the Light On, where we're going to turn the light on and shine it on some of these things that we don't know about, which now leads me into our very first interview of today.
Yeah.
We are now speaking to our first interview of our segment, Amy Lakin with Casa Youth Shelter in Los Alamitos. Thank you, Amy, for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me, Linnea. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely. And now I want to talk a bit more about, obviously you're with Casa, so I want to know more about you and how long you've been there, and a little bit about yourself. And then I also want to get more into the layers of Casa Youth Shelter and what you guys do there.
Absolutely. So I'm the executive director at Casa Youth Shelter. I've been there now for almost 3 years. So I'm a relative newbie. There are a lot of our staff who've been there a lot longer than I have, but it's an amazing place to work. We have an incredible team of staff, and it's great to work with people who care about kids for a living. It's an amazing place. Casa has been around since 1978. We were founded by an incredible woman named Mildred Jones, who retired from the military and knew that there was a need for shelter for unaccompanied teens. And so she built this shelter at a time when a lot of people were saying, not in my backyard. And she just was not somebody that anybody ever said no to. And she built this shelter, and we've never closed our doors in 42 years, including with everything that's going on now. So it's a pretty amazing place.
Now, did she come from I want to know her story. I was reading, oh my gosh, I was obsessed when I took the tour, because there's plaques throughout the building. And so did she come from a broken home? Did she have a tie-in?
That's a good question. She actually had a friend who, the story goes, she had a friend in high school who was living on her couch because that friend came from a broken home and really had nowhere to be. And she started this whole lifelong journey about caring for kids who really were the invisible homeless, because they do not have a safe environment in their own home, but they aren't on the streets like the adults that we hear about and talk about in LA and Orange County all the time. It's the kids that are still showing up to school and still trying to live their lives, but they're bouncing from one couch to another, or are living in a car. And Couches Don't Count is a huge campaign that's national now. And Mildred was one who had a friend who just was living with her, and she was like, this is not fair. This is not how any child should grow up. And she ended up being on Ronald Reagan's task force for youth when he was governor of California. She started the National Suicide Hotline for Teens. She marched with Martin Luther King and Cesar Chavez. She was just an incredible activist, and her passion was making sure that youth had a safe place to be and to live her legacy and see it, come to life every day is phenomenal. I wish I had the chance to know her.
I bet. When did she pass?
In 2006 is when she passed, I believe. And she lived, when she retired from the military, she actually sold her home in Rossmore and purchased the lot where the shelter is now and the little property next door. And she actually lived right next door for 29 years, right in that little cottage next door. And her final wish was, when she passed away, that her little house would become a recreation space for the kids at the shelter. So now we have our recreation space on our site, so the kids can be outdoors and play basketball or volleyball at the property, and still, be able to be active but be safe and stay on our property. So she,
How awesome. She got to witness it.
Yeah.
I mean, we have these ideas and these plans, and then to make it happen and to be hands-on and see it. And oh my gosh, her legacy gets to live on.
Yeah. Every day.
Past her.
Yeah. She's pretty amazing. It's
Such
pretty great to be able to carry that on. Yeah.
So tell me more about what takes place at Casa Youth Shelter. I took the tour, and I know what caught Yvonne's attention is in my story, I joke about coming from a similar background,
Mhm.
and my mom was abusive, and it used to frustrate me, and it still does, because people tell me, they always say, you don't find happiness, you create your happiness. But when you're a teen stuck in a situation like that, yeah, there's only so much you can create. You're stuck.
Yeah,
So I shared that story. I think I shared the story on there about how no one in my family has teeth, and those are facts.
it's true.
I don't post the pictures, but yeah, and I joke about how my mom's in an urn because her lifestyle, that's where it led her. So but hey,
Not wrong.
she has an eternal home now.
And I'm sure she appreciates that. It's a nice, warm, safe, comfortable place. And that's what we try to provide, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
So
It's a challenge. Well, and that's, it's amazing to me in the few years that I've worked there, how many people I've met who share elements of that story, right?
right.
Whether it's choices that a parent has made that put children at risk, or whether the children are at risk just on their own, the mental health issues or traumatic experiences. Human trafficking is such a big issue in our community. Neglect, abuse, especially with everything going on right now. Or sometimes just, a blended family and nobody knows how to engage in dealing with, talking about the emotions and the feelings and the coping skills that are required to create, a safe environment out of that dramatic change. There are a lot of things that can lead to this. Homelessness is a chronic issue that can come from a family, or it can come from a youth who, comes out to his parents and gets kicked out for some reason, right? There are so many ways that kids can end up in crisis, and they need a safe space to be. And that's really what Casa Youth Shelter is about. We provide emergency temporary shelter for youth ages 12 to 17 who need a safe place to be. And we have intake and crisis calls 24 hours a day, and kids come in from off the streets. We get referrals from schools, from law enforcement, from other community agencies and organizations that work with kids that just...
I'm taking some notes while you're talking, because I remember some of these key points, and I want to plug that whenever I put this all together, because those are the different resources that are connected.
Yeah, absolutely.
Law enforcement, helps guide them in the right direction, because they're obviously, kids can go a different direction whenever the law gets involved.
Absolutely. And we have law enforcement that they find kids sleeping in a park, and rather than bringing them to juvenile hall or putting them in the foster system, they'll bring them to Casa Youth Shelter and give kind of us the opportunity to connect with their parent or guardian, or figure out what is actually going on with that child and determine what the next best steps are. Because sometimes it is a criminal issue, or sometimes it is connecting with their families and trying to do counseling and reunify the families. We're successful at that about 75 or 80% of the time.
Wow.
Sometimes that's not a safe option, and so the foster system or a different family member or something is a better choice. So it's a matter of taking that child in and really getting into the counseling. And our program is much more than just shelter and food and showers. It's very much about engaging the youth, and we have group counseling so the kids can sit and talk with other kids that are going through something sort of similar, and they can engage and relate to one another. Every kid, when they come into the shelter, is immediately assigned a counselor. They get individual counseling. Whenever possible, we try to engage the families in family therapy a couple times a week, and figure out what the best solution is, and help give them coping skills to help them figure out how to mitigate crisis in the future. Because we all experience trauma and crisis at varying levels, and based on our background and our experience and our role models in life, you learn how to cope and deal with things that come up. And some people need some more help in learning how to deal with those crises. So that's what we're here for. And we do a lot of we provide food and shelter and all of those, hygiene products and clothing and things that kids who come from the streets need. But we also have a full, well-rounded clinical program where we provide individual, group, and family counseling. We have educational tutoring. We have trauma-informed yoga classes and recreation. We do pet therapy and art therapy. We know that there are different ways to reach different people, right? Talk therapy is something that is very beneficial, and it's helpful when it's supplemented by other types of therapy and programs that allow the kids to connect in different ways.
Right. And being able to, I mean, it's hard to open up, whenever you're dealing with certain situations, and then learning how to cope. I know for me, whenever, in 2014, I lost my sister, and I didn't know, I've never lost anyone that I was close to. I mean, I'd lost my mom, but we didn't have a good relationship. So when I lost my sister, that was big. I didn't know how at all to deal with that. Meditation, though, I'd never tried meditation before because I'm super hyper and I can't stop this ever.
Right.
But I needed something. So I tried meditation. I went to an instructor that taught meditation, and she taught me how to quiet the noise, which was incredible. And I can only imagine for teens what a useful thing that is, because there are so many noises and so many distractions and so many triggers. Oh my gosh, even to this day, I'll smell things, I'll hear things. If there's a loud bang, it startles me, and to the point that it kind of stops me from doing whatever I'm doing for a second. So these teens, they need to be able to learn how to cope with those things to navigate into being a productive adult.
Absolutely. And even just to identify the fact that there are triggers like that, the fact that you can point to something that is a specific trigger for you and you can acknowledge when it happens and that you need a coping mechanism to deal with it, starting from the very beginning of that and recognizing what the triggers are and how to identify it, how to anticipate when it might happen, and then how to cope with it and how you deal with it, and taking responsibility for that. A lot of these kids are forced to grow up earlier than they should, and it's learning how to anticipate and see when they're going to be triggered by something and figure out how to deal with it in a productive way. And sometimes a 12 and 13-year-old should not be asked to do things like that. But some of these kids, they're incredible kids, and they're just dealing with some really difficult circumstances, and try to give them the tools that we can so they can be successful.
It's so awesome. I love that your facility is amazing. It's beyond cozy. The bedrooms are bedrooms. Those are what a bedroom should look like. They have beds, they have blankets, they have dressers, they have pictures on the walls, they have paintings, it's so cozy. And then I saw the closet with clothes, because I know Tilly's, you have some organizations that donate to Casa or work with Casa, right?
Yep. We are so lucky. Yeah. So that's one of the things that really was Mildred's vision and is very important to all of us that work there, is that it really feels like a home. There's a stigma around shelter in general. And when you think about the word shelter, you think about a giant room full of cots, right?
Yeah,
and
big warehouse.
Right. A big warehouse. And you think, 3 hots and a cot is kind of the terminology. And we are very much not about that. We have a living room and a dining room where everybody eats together, and we have individual bedrooms with 2 beds per room, and multiple bathrooms, and the kids really make it their own. And when you came to see, we renovated the bedrooms so they're all gender neutral and with new carpet and new paint and new artwork on the walls, because if we take pride in the space, the kids take pride in the space, and we know that we value them and they deserve a space that is beautiful and cared for and comfortable. So all of that matters. And then we are so lucky with Tilly's and Vans and recently Volcom and a few other great companies and local organizations. We have a lot of people we call our pantry angels that help provide hygiene products and food and clothing and shoes and things that make a difference. We have some kids that come in with nothing but the shirt on their back. So to be able to provide them with food for their families when they go home, and clothing that makes them feel comfortable and they can fit in with other kids. You know, Tillies and Vans are something that every kid wears, so they don't go back to school feeling like they are dressed like they were at a shelter, right? They don't have to explain that to anybody. They're wearing clothes just like anybody else. And it means a lot to be able to provide that to the kids. Our whole program is offered free of charge, and that includes all of the counseling and the shelter and the food and the clothing and the hygiene products. You know, everybody gets shampoo and just stuff that you take for granted in our own lives until you don't have it.
I remember when I was in junior high, a couple of times I got a nice outfit and I wore it to school just to have someone say something along the lines of, that's not you. What are you doing wearing those Guess jeans? And so it made, I totally get it. You feel, our clothes say a lot about us, you know, which is, you think it's shallow, but as teens, I mean, that's just how they are. You're labeled by what you wear. So that is awesome. Those are great brands, and they do help you feel more confident about yourself. And like I said, I don't feel like they're staying at a shelter that way. And I don't even think it's a shelter. It's a house. It's Casa. It's a house.
It's a home. We try very hard to make it feel like a home.
And you know what's really cool is the gift that you are providing those kids. Because when those kids eventually turn into adults and they get married and they have children, they'll recognize the tools that they need to provide and an environment that they need to provide for their family.
I hope so. You know, this is carried throughout generations. And that's part of what, you know, we offer parenting classes, and we have had some clients that were residents before that have since come back to take parenting classes when they have kids of their own, because we're a resource. Once you're a part of our team and our community, you are part of the family forever. So we do a lot of things for former residents and for clients that have come back asking for support, and we're happy to provide it. So yeah, it's pretty great.
I love it. So now what I want to know about, because with everything that's happened with COVID-19, we have, you know, people having to stay home. We have families having to stay home. They aren't working. They have teens not going to school, kids not going to school, things of that sort. So what are the things that you're seeing, and what have you had to kind of navigate through that? You know, what kind of things are you guys seeing, and what are you doing again to combat that?
Yeah, it's such a good question. It's a really difficult time for so many people right now. The biggest thing is we're still open. We have our frontline staff that are there every day to make sure that kids who need a safe space have one to go to. We have definitely seen an uptick in domestic violence calls and child abuse concerns, because a lot of the kids' school was a very safe place. A lot of the mandated reporters are the teachers and the counselors at schools, or people who run after school programs. And now a lot of the teens have lost contact with those support systems. So we're seeing a lot more of kids being, you know, stuck at home, and a lot of tensions are increased for families. And it's not always an intentional thing, but parents are super stressed out right now. I'm one of them, you know, trying to work and take care of your children, and just a heightened stress level because of everything going on in the world. Right. So tensions are high, and it's hard for kids that don't have the school as their safe place. And the schools are trying very hard to stay in touch with them. And, you know, the teachers are doing amazing jobs online, and the schools are still providing food, but it's not the same as having a safe place to be 6 or 8 hours a day. Right. So we've definitely seen an uptick with that. Law enforcement has gotten a lot more calls and are sending more kids our way for that reason. And then there's the homeless population. There's a lot of homeless youth that are able to kind of, like we said, be invisible and kind of hide when there's school going on. They bounce from one couch to another. They stay with grandparents. And now none of that is a safe option. If they're out in the community, they can't, you know, come in and out with grandparents or families, other friends that have kind of hunkered down, right? And they can't safely quarantine if they don't have a home.
Right.
So we've definitely seen some kids that come that just don't have anywhere else to be. Their families are living in cars, and that's not a safe place for a teenager, right? So it's changed a little bit. We are limiting some of our youth who come to the shelter right now, kind of to protect our staff as well as the other kids that are there. Really trying to take in kids that have nowhere else safe to be. For the kids that are really just kind of need additional support or are having some behavior issues because of everything going on, we are offering counseling and case management services and parenting classes. We've opened all of that up to the general public. So it's not now just for shelter residents, but it's for anybody. You know, our counselors specialize in helping teenagers and families through crisis. And that's what all of us are going through right now. At varying levels of trauma. So our counselors are taking appointments from anybody who needs some extra support. And then our shelter doors are open for the kids that need a safe place to be. And we're doing everything we can to keep our staff and the residents safe. We're, you know, all of the CDC's guidelines as far as cleaning and hygiene and washing hands and everything that everybody is trying to do to keep everybody safe.
Right.
And our local grocery stores have been really supportive to allow us to shop for the shelter and make sure that we have the supplies that we need for the kids for cleaning and food and everything. So the biggest thing is just to say that we're still here, and, you know, a kid that needs a safe place, our doors are open and our phones are online 24 hours a day.
And what now, if someone, obviously if a teen, or if someone knows of a teen that needs help, well, how would they reach you? What's, well, the website, best way, different ways.
Absolutely. Our website is probably the easiest way to reach us. Also we have a 24-hour crisis hotline. The number is 1-800-914-CASA. So 914 CASA, which is 2272. So 1-800-914-2272. And that number is available 24 hours a day and staffed by a live person, not a voicemail. So call anytime or go on our website or just come knock on the door. We're open 24/7, and, you know, ring the doorbell and our staff will be there to help.
Wow. Ring the doorbell. That's incredible.
Yeah.
That's an awesome visual. What's the website?
The website is casayouthshelter.org.
Okay.
And that's also where you can go even if you don't need shelter, but are looking for counseling for a family or for an individual teenager or an adult. If you're looking for parenting classes, we offer that in English and Spanish every Monday night. And we have case management services. There are a lot of resources kind of floating around in the world now. And if people need help kind of navigating through that, looking for information about employment or unemployment or housing or education, our case manager is really good at helping sort through those referrals. And we have registration forms on our website for all of those things. So anything we can do to help the community cope with this situation right now, we're happy to do.
Now, if someone is in another area, for example, I know because you guys are in Los Alamitos, which is geographically, that's closer to, I know it's Orange County.
Yeah, it's right on the border between LA and Orange County. Right. So it's like right north Orange County, crossing into Long Beach.
Long Beach. Okay, I was going to say that would be like the closest marker, Long Beach.
Absolutely.
So if you've got someone that's dealing with a situation or knows of a situation that's maybe in the Inland Empire, if someone were to call you, would you be able to give them that information?
Absolutely.
Okay.
So there are a number of other youth shelters in the region. We're actually one of 2 in Orange County, and there are only a couple in LA County as well. But there are something like 11 that are open right now between Santa Barbara, San Diego, and out to the Riverside and Valley area.
Okay.
So we absolutely will make referrals to the shelter that is closest to wherever you are. And all of our counseling and, case management, parenting services obviously are being offered remotely now anyway. So all of that is online and accessible for anybody, but we will absolutely provide resources and referrals to whatever is closest. We're the closest shelter really for much of South LA County and most of Orange County.
Okay.
But if you're outside of that region, there are shelters all over the country for unaccompanied youth, and we can absolutely provide those referrals.
We could talk forever because there's just
I would love that.
yeah, there's so many great points to be made. And we'll have to revisit this because, come the holidays and various things that are sensitive subject matters, I could only imagine that you guys provide for the kids and that there's opportunities for organizations to get involved. So we'll have to revisit this come that time because I do want to let people know how they can get involved and they can help.
Would love that. We rely very much on the generosity of our community, donors, volunteers, right? We rely a lot on that, and we're so grateful for the support.
Well, we'll definitely have to touch on that at a later date because
would love it.
My favorite quote, and I say this all the time when I do a Comedy for Causes show, but there's a quote by Muhammad Ali that says, our service to others is the rent we pay for our space here on earth. Mm-hmm. And so we're not here to just take, we're here to give. So everyone, and people say, the world is filled with bad people, but when I started doing Comedy for Causes, I started in 2011, I realized there's a lot of really good people. Just unfortunately, they need to know how to connect to these things. And so that's what I'm trying to do is just connect the dots for people. So
I love that. And I think it's so wonderful that you're doing this now because you are shining a light on things that people need to, be aware of and opportunities for people to help, which I think you're right. There are so many good people in the world that want to help and just need to know how. So yeah, I think it's wonderful.
And that's what we're going to do. So, and what I'll be doing, like I said, I'm going to be sharing this on my social media platforms for my personal one, as well as Comedy for Causes, and then on my YouTube channels. And I'll tag some news outlets too, because it doesn't hurt. I mean, if anything, we'll get some love somewhere. And I want people to just spread the word. And yeah, it's important, especially right now.
And the more people who know that we're open and we're a safe space for kids that need it, that's, the kids need the community looking out for them right now, because the people who normally do that are everybody's at home, right? So this is
what they're watching.
Exactly.
They're tuning in on Facebook, on Instagram, on Twitter, on LinkedIn, because they're looking for a job.
Right? It's absolutely true. And
the reality.
To make sure that people know that there are youth shelters that are available, and we offer, a safe space and counseling and support and anything we can do. So I appreciate you helping shine a light on what needs to be, made available in the world right now.
I agree. Thank you so much. This was an awesome opportunity, awesome privilege for me, because this is my first one that I'm doing, and I'm going to start doing them. My goal is to air at least one a week, and you're my first one, so I'm super excited because I'm passionate about this.
We appreciate it. It means a lot to have you advocate for us and our kids.
I love it. So it's a privilege for me. It's just as rewarding. So I think I've covered everything. And again, you guys, you're tuning into Comedy for Causes, and the new segment is Turning the Light On, where we shine light on various organizations that need to be made aware of so that you can help them, and you can also reach out to them if you know of someone that needs help, or yourself, and just to know about what's out there. I know we're all going through a hard time right now, and it's going to pass, but even after it passes, we still have causes that need our help, and that's what my objective is in putting this together. I know my intention is for everyone else, and I just want to connect the dots. So thank you guys for tuning in. Again, my name is Linnea Dominguez with Comedy for Causes. You can follow Comedy for Causes on Facebook, as well as Linnea Dominguez on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. Send me an email. I'll put all my contact information on here. And again, thank you, Amy, for spending your last 45 minutes with me. This was good.
It's been fun. Thank you so much, Linnea. I really appreciate the opportunity, and thanks for supporting us.
Of course. And once I get this all up and done, I will share it and I'll tag you and I'll email you.